This one will be a bit shorter due to my schedule, but anyway. Dibalti al kach bekenes shel mefachim. So we continue what we said last time, about the big day kuna, the priestly clothing being, or the army uniform being like the priestly clothing, in the way that just like a priest puts on his uniform and puts aside his personal interests and shows that he's a person who cares about the multitude, the klal, so too we, when we put our uniform, is supposed to imprint upon us the understand that we're not doing things for ourselves, we're doing things for Am Yisrael and for Kodesh Baruch Hu. Says Rav Eli Sedan, I spoke about this idea in a conference of supervisors of the Ministry of Education in Yerushalayim. One of the supervisors asked me, or told me, Kvod Rav Sedan, says this guy, Harav, we know that you are a Rosh Mechina of a pre-army academy, and you really, really respect the army. But with all due respect, there's some stuff that people just can't, their ears can't listen to. To make a comparison, you can dare to make a comparison with between the clothes of a soldier, those of a Kohen Gadol or Kohen. Up until here, I'm not willing to listen. I put up with you enough, right? When someone says with all due respect, they normally say something which isn't respectful. So he's asked Rav Eli Sedan this. Rav Eli Sedan thought to himself, Tov, Kushia Tova, good question. HaKodesh Baruch Hu Chem Alai, HaKodesh Baruch Hu mercy upon me, u'b'diuk b'ot hashana asakti b'limud ba'al ha'turim al Parshat Tzav. Says HaKodesh Baruch Hu mercy upon me, and Dafka in that year, I was learning the Perush of Ba'al HaTurim on Parshat Tzav. So the Ba'al HaTurim is Rav Yaakov Turim, I believe, but he's the Rosh's son, Rabbeinu Asher, who was an Ashkenazi rabbi who went to Spain because of because of the issues with the anti-Semitism and Christians and all that jazz. So he was in Spain. His son, Ba'al HaTurim, wrote a book called the Arba Turim, which is the 4 subsections of Orach Chaim, Choshen Mishpat Yehuda, and Even Ezer of Halacha, right? Which is Shulchan Aruch is then based on after that. That's his main book, the Arba Turim, and then he also has a Perush on the Torah called Ba'al HaTurim. So he said, Kodesh Baruch Hu had mercy upon me, and as it happened, I had been learning that halacha, that sefer Ba'al HaTurim on Parashat Tzav, and there it says like this: V'sham al pasuk v'levash kon midor bad, and there in the parasha it says, and the Kohen wore measurement of clothing. And the Ba'al HaTurim says in another place in the Tanakh, it says midor bad. When it talks about Yoav, who is David Melech's Ramatkal, head of the army, and it says over there midor bad as well, the same wording. Mikan, and this is him quoting the Ba'al HaTurim, Mikan, by the fact that these words midor bad appears in 2 places, once by the Kohen and once by a soldier. Shebigdei kuna kebigdei milchama. The Ba'al HaTurim, if that's not good, you're bothered by what I'm saying, Rav Eli said that is kind of insinuating. You might be bothered, but I'm not the first one to make that comparison. The Ba'al HaTurim is. He says that bigdei kuna are like bigdei milchama. Lo afuch, ela dafka bigdei kuna kebigdei milchama. Right? When you say something is like something else, then what's the most important thing? The original thing, the thing which is like something else, or something else? So in English, right? Wow, this apple tastes like a banana, right? So when someone says that in a positive way, right? That maybe not a good example. This Ford is really like a Lamborghini, right? What's more important, the Ford or the Lamborghini? Lamborghini, obviously, right? So to here, when you say bigdei kuna are like bigdei milchama, you're insinuating that what's more important, that the bigdei kuna the priestly clothing is like the more important thing, the uniform of the soldier. Ad kan lashon. Lo hafuch, אלא דווקא בגדי כהונה כבגדי מלחמה. ומתוך כך זכיתי להביא ראיה לדבריי. And because I've been learning this, I was able to prove this supervisor from the Ministry of Education who asked me in front of everyone this challenge, right? So too with Akedah Yitzchak, the binding of Yitzchak. Higia Avram imu nechonut lemisut nefesh. Avram came already to Har Moriah to sacrifice his son with the intention of Mesirus Nefesh, of sacrifice, self-sacrifice. He wasn't literally sacrificing himself, but this is his spiritual future and his own son. It says, right, Abram sends out his hand to grab the knife to sacrifice his son. But Kosh Baruch Hu then spoke to him and revealed to him what his plan was all along. Don't send out your hand to your son, to this youth, and don't do to him anything. Because Kosh Baruch Hu wants something even harder. Not a one-time event of Mesirut Nefesh, but to live lives of Mesirut Nefesh. So Kosh Baruch Hu tells him, no, don't do anything. You've proven it. You've proven that you are willing to do it. Now we live a life like this, that you're willing to be moiser nefesh, to sacrifice. To be someone who is willing to give all his life to serving of God. To live for God and not to die for God. Obviously, sometimes, unfortunately, Am Yisrael have had to die for God as well. But the Ikar is, we rather lived for God and not to die for God. Not to die sanctifying God's name, but rather to live sanctifying God's name. Again, sometimes we are placed in situations where Holocaust, wars, where we die al Kiddush Hashem as well, but the Ikar here is something different, that it's better to live al Kiddush Hashem. Right, we said, Gam Kohen Gadol, Ba'avodat Yom Kippur, Nichnas L'Kodesh HaKodeshim B'Misut Nefesh. So to the Kohen Gadol, when he goes into the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur, he's going in with what in mind? Mesirut Nefesh, because I could die. I'm sacrificing myself for the greater good. There were Kohanim who were pulled out from there, dead, because they weren't on the madrega, which meant they could survive that experience. So too, going to the army is a matzav of Mesirut Nefesh, of self-sacrifice, of possible self-sacrifice. And even if you not even in your life's not even in danger, the fact is you're putting your life in danger. And therefore, when doing so, make sure you're dressed correctly. Meaning, if the mashal is with the Kohen Gadol, he has to be wearing all his clothing, his breastplate, his sitz, his head covering, his mikbad, all these different things. So too, you need to be wearing the right things. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean literally you need to be wearing your uniform. You need to do what your mafaktim say, but you need to be wearing a uniform of the greater good. You're doing things for Kodesh Baruch Hu, for Am Yisrael, and not because of some simple self-interest. So we'll make that one short for today. See you guys soon.